Good morning, YouTube. We're going to continue on with Anti-Oedipus today from the section 3 of the first chapter, the subject and enjoyment. Conforming to the meaning of the word process, recording falls back on production, but the production of recording itself is produced by the production of production. Similarly, recording is followed by consumption, but the production of consumption is produced in and through the production of recording. This is because something on the order of a subject can be discerned on the recording surface. It is a strange subject, however, with no fixed identity, wandering about over the body without organs. So it's not the body without organs, it's on it, but always remaining peripheral to the desiring machines, being defined by the share of the product it takes for itself, garnering here, there, and everywhere a reward in the form of a becoming or an avatar, being born of the states that it consumes and being reborn with each new state. It's me, and so it's mine. Even suffering, as Marx says, is a form of self-enjoyment. Doubtless, all desiring production is, in and of itself, immediately consumption and consummation, and therefore sensual pleasure. But this is not yet the case for a subject that can situate itself only in terms of the disjunctions of a recording surface, in what is left after each division. Returning yet again to the case of Judge Schreiber, we note that he is vividly aware of this fact. The rate of cosmic sexual pleasure remains constant, so that God will find a way of taking his pleasure with Schreiber, even if in order to do so, Schreiber must transform himself into a woman. But Schreiber experiences only a residual share of this pleasure as a recompense for his suffering or as a reward for his becoming woman. On the other hand, God demands a constant state of enjoyment, and it is my duty to provide him with this in the shape of the greatest possible output of spiritual voluptuousness. And if in this process a little sensual pleasure falls to my share, I feel justified in accepting it as some slight compensation for the inordinate measure of suffering and privation that has been mine for so many past years. 14, cited in Sigmund Freud Psychoanalytic Notes. Just as a part of the libido as energy of production was transformed into energy of recording, Newman, a part of this energy of recording is transformed into energy of consummation, voluptas. So at the bottom of this, isn't it? The French term here is energy de consommation. The word consummation has a number of meanings in French, among them consummation as of a marriage, an ultimate fulfillment of perfection, and consumption as of raw material, fuel, or products. The term has therefore been translated variously below, depending on the context. Asterisks there. Newman again, what's that? I'll look up. The spirit or divine power presiding over a thing or place. Late 15th century, from Latin, the spirit of the place, its Newman, was strong. The spirit or divine power residing over a thing or place. Just as part of the libido as energy of production was transformed into energy of recording, like a spirit of power over a place, a part of this energy of recording is transformed into energy of consumption, consummation, I should say. It is this residual energy that is the motive force behind the third synthesis of the unconscious, the conjunctive synthesis. So it's, or the production of consumption. We must examine how this synthesis is formed or how the subject is produced. Our point of departure was the opposition between desiring machines and the body without organs. That would be subjects. And the body without organs is something desubjectivized. The repulsion of these machines, as found in the paranoiac machine of primary repression, gave way to an attraction in the miraculating machine. But the opposition between attraction and repulsion persists. It would seem that a genuine reconciliation of the two can take place only on the level of a new machine functioning as the return of the repressed. There are a number of proofs that such a reconciliation does or can exist. With no further details being provided, we are told of Robert Guy, the very talented designer of paranoiac electrical machines. Since he was unable to free himself of these currents that were tormenting him, he gives every appearance of having finally joined forces with them, taking passionate pride in portraying them in their total victory, in their triumph. L'art brut. Freud is more specific when he stresses the crucial turning point that occurs in Schreber's illness, when Schreber becomes reconciled to becoming woman and embarks upon a process of self-cure that brings him back to the equation nature equals production, the production of a new humanity. As a matter of fact, Schreber finds himself frozen in the pose and trapped in the paraphernalia of a transvestite at a moment when he's practically cured and has recovered all his faculties. I am sometimes to be found standing before the mirror or elsewhere with the upper portion of my body partly bared and wearing sundry feminine adornments such as ribbons, trumpery necklaces, and the like. This occurs only, I may add, when I am by myself and never, at least so far as I'm able to avoid it, in the presence of other people. Freud, Psychoanalytic Notes. Let us borrow the term celibate machine to describe this machine that succeeds the paranoiac machine and the miraculating machine, forming a new alliance between the desiring machine and the body without organs so as to give birth to a new humanity or a glorious organism. This is tantamount to saying that the subject is produced as a mere residuum alongside the desiring machine, that the subject is produced as mere residuum alongside the desiring machine, or that he confuses himself with this third productive machine and with the residual reconciliation that it brings about a conjunctive synthesis of consummation in the form of a wonderstruck. So that's what it was. Okay, I'm having trouble understanding this whole book. So I'm going to get the bot to explain this bit for me and the bit after the colon as well. So I'll just get that bot to explain that for me. I'm reading Anti-Oedipus. I still spelled it wrong. Oedipus. And I'm having trouble, it starts with a T, trouble connecting all the machines in my mind together as where they fit. Now I've capitalized it. Machines together as where they fit, as to where they fit. They fit. Okay, I'm reading Anti-Oedipus and I'm having trouble connecting all the machines together as to where they fit in the book, in the theory, where they fit. And so explain this bit, which is in section 3. Section 3. The subject, and what? Enjoyment. Load. Okay, so I'll just get the rest of that bit now. And I'll just put that in because it's easier than going over the top, isn't it? Yes, and I'll just go down here. On conjunctive synthesis, what's that mean? It means they come together and synthesize into one. So they form a new machine or a new subject or something. All right. Let's borrow the term celibate machine to designate this machine that succeeds, comes after the paranoiac machine and the miraculating machine in the conjunctive synthesis. Okay, let me say, what's the miraculating machine? It produces a miracle. Miraculating machine. And what are the and the paranoiac machine, and forming a new alliance between the desiring machines and the body without organs. Okay, let us borrow the term celibate machine to designate this machine that succeeds the paranoiac machine and the miraculating machine, forming a new alliance between the desiring machines and the body without organs, so as to give birth to a new humanity or a glorious organism. Okay, so how many desiring machines are there? And what are their names? And what are their names? are their names. This is tantamount to saying that the subject is produced as a mere residuum alongside the desiring machines. Residuum. Okay, I'm looking it up. I'm going to get the Ocker language out. Look up. Chemical residue, class of society that is unemployed and without privileges or opportunities. Okay, that's sociology. The other one's technical, chemical residue. So origin mid-17th century from Latin neuter of residuous, remaining, from the verb residere, residuum, check. So it's just residue in a nice way, I suppose. Why did you use residuum? Why is residuum used as opposed to residue? Alongside, which is a mere residuum. Is it a chemical? Alongside the desiring machines, or that he confuses himself with this third productive machine and with the residual, is that because you didn't want to use two residuals in the one side, and with the residual reconciliation that it brings about, that this, is it called what's it called? About a conjunctive synthesis of consummation in the form of wonderstruck, of a wonderstruck. So that's what it was. What's the miraculating machine and the paranoiac machine? How many desiring machines? Oh, there we go. That's my words. And what are their names? And the conjunctive synthesis, conjunctive synthesis is when machines come together and form a new machine or humanity or glorious organism. Humanity or glorious organism. Glorious organism. Now, cop that, bot. This is a very common sticky point in Anti-Oedipus, so you're not failing to get it. You're right on at the conceptual pressure point of the book. Let me slow it down and map the machines in sequence rather than as a blur of metaphors. I'll keep the explanation internal to Deleuze and Guattari's system, not psychoanalysis. And I'll link it to ideas you already work with, the virtual, production, immanence, and the body without organs. First, how many desiring machines are there? This is the first misunderstanding to clear up. There is not a fixed list of named desiring machines. Desiring machines are everywhere. A desiring machine is simply any partial connection that produces a flow and interrupts a flow. Is any partial connection that produces a flow and interrupts the flow. Partial connection. I'm going to have to look at what flow is. I think I've got a note from 1,000 Photos. Oh, you go into this one. I'll just ask, what's a flow? A flow. I don't know, we'll stop here. And this way, where are we? Interrupts a flow. Examples they give: breast to mouth, or breast back and forward mouth, whatever that is, dual arrow, a blended arrow. Produces flow and interrupts flow. Okay, so the breast milk flows, and the mouth saliva flows, when they come together, they're interrupted in a partial connection because they're not fully connected like a crimped piece of wire. Eye and image, tool, hand and tool, ear and voice, factory worker and raw materials. Think of them as micro-assemblages of production. Oh, I missed a bit. Desiring machines, molecular, multiple, innumerable. They always work by connection plus interruption. They never form a unified subject. Think of them as micro-assemblages of production. The three syntheses. This is the real structure. Everything you're asking about sits inside the three syntheses of desire. Synthesis. 1, connective synthesis. 2, disjunctive synthesis. 3, conjunctive synthesis. Synthesis machine. 1, connective synthesis. Desiring machines, what it does, and. So it just produces a never-ending desire for something you don't know, or you just want more. Or it produces a synthesis sort of situation, connecting to something unnamed. Disjunctive synthesis, machine paranoiac plus miraculating machines. Disjunctive, okay, plus miraculating, recording and attribution. It's recording because it's paranoid and it has to like get proof of its paranoia. But why the miraculating on? You got to tell me what that means other than making a miracle. That's what I take that as mean. Has it got a dictionary definition? The Miraculating Machine by jessicaram.com. Watch out for your children and your rats on the 26th and 27th of November 2010 as the clanking and creaking miraculating machine comes trundling through the streets of Perth. This multi-wheeled machine is a printing press like no other. Conjunctive synthesis, celibate machine, subject as residue. Now let's unpack each. Okay. 3, the paranoiac machine, disjunctive synthesis. This appears when desiring machines encounter the body without organs. What is happening? Desiring machines produce flows. These flows hit the body without organs. The body without organs resists, repels, blocks. The body without organs says no connections, no organs, no production. This creates paranoia. Flows feel threatening. Production feels invasive. Desire appears as something alien or persecutory. Hence the paranoid machine. It records flows, but it treats them as hostile. It organizes them through exclusive disjunctions, either or. Flows. Example, either this desire or mine is mine, or it is imposed on me, either God or the devil, either inside or outside. This is not yet repression, but the groundwork for it. Do I not have enough Freud in me? Or the miraculating machine, still disjunctive synthesis. Now something strange happens. The body without organs doesn't just repel flows, it claims them. This miraculating. The miraculating machine attributes all production to the body without organs. Makes the body without organs appear as the source of desire. This turns production into miracle. I did nothing, yet everything happens through me. This is why they use religious language, God as source of all production, capital as source of all value, the organism as natural. You could use more fucking words, mate. So, desiring machines produce. The body without organs records. Is that paranoid? Paranoid? And that's produce flows. The miraculating machine says, I am what makes this happen. This is how organs become my organs. When you're a miraculating machine. When you got all these three machines in one situation, organs become my organs, desire becomes my desire, production becomes identity. Produce the celibate machine, conjunctive synthesis. Now we reach the passage you quoted. The celibate machine is not about sexlessness, it's about non-reproductive enjoyment. What it does, it reconciles desiring machines production. Desiring machines, aka production. The body without organs, aka recording, without forming a total organism. Instead, it produces a subject as leftover. Where does the celibate machine come into that, though? Instead of it produces. This is the key line. The subject is produced as a mere residuum alongside the desiring machines. The subject is not the origin, not the agent, not the cause. It is the after effect of production. So that's what it was. What does this mean? This is conjunctive synthesis, not I am the one who desires, but so this was happening. So that's what it was. What does this mean? This is not conjunctive synthesis. This is conjunctive synthesis. Not I am the one who desires, but so this was happening. It's a moment of consummation, not understanding. Yeah, affect, not interpretation. Think of aesthetic rapture, political awakening, mystical insight, listening to PJ Harvey and suddenly feeling that the album was doing to you what the album was doing to you. The subject emerges saying, I was part of this process. That's it. Does the conjunctive synthesis create a new humanity or glorious organism? Yes, but not in the humanist sense. Glorious organism is ironic. What's produced is not a unified body, not a coherent cell, not an organism with organs in the old sense, but a mode of existence, a way desire passes through a body, a style of being, a configuration of intensities. A new humanity, a humanity without transcendence, without Oedipus, without God, without capital as origin. One-page mental map. Here's the cleanest way to hold it together. Desiring machines produce flows everywhere, always. Body without organs resists production. Paranoiac machine records flows as threats. Miraculating machine attributes flows to a false source. Celibate machine produces enjoyment without reproduction. Subject appears as residue. So that's what it was. Why this matters for your reading of the virtual. You already think of the virtual as imminent potential. Anti-Oedipus radicalizes this. Desire is virtual production. The subject is actualized afterward. Identity is a recording effect, not a cause. This is why Anti-Oedipus feels destabilizing. It removes the subject from the center without replacing it with structure. If you want, next we can diagram this visually, connect it directly to 1,000 plateaus. Oh, fuck off. I'm getting this hotmail from different people saying I owe money for the cloud. It's junk, but it still gets through every day. Or contrast it with Lacan so you can see exactly what they're breaking. Just tell me, tell me about Lacan. Tell me about what they're breaking. They are breaking. Oops. King in Lacan. Lacan. Great. This is exactly the right next question. Thanks. You always tell me that. I'll take it into two tightly connected parts. What flow is in Anti-Oedipus? Well, exactly what Deleuze and Guattari are breaking in Lacan, not a caricature, but the real target. I'll keep it precise and not mythical. Can you use more words? Full sentences, please. 1. What is flow? Flow is not a substance. It is movement of production before it is named, coded, or owned, like an affect. A flow is milk before it is mother's milk. Sound before it is speech, libido before it is sexuality, labor before it is a job, libido before it is energy, before a job, affect before it is emotion, money before it is wages, image before it is meaning. So flow equals desire in motion, not process. It is pure immanence. Key properties of flows. 1. Flows do not belong to a subject. They pass through bodies. They are not experienced by a self. Flows are always cut. Desire never flows smoothly. Every flow meets a cut, a desiring machine. Example, milk cut by mouth, sound cut by ear, image cut by eye. Flow plus cut equals production. This is why desire is productive, not expressive. Flow versus representation. This is where Lacan enters. Lacan treats desire as structured like a language. Deleuze and Guattari treat desire as structured like a factory. Lacan uses a factory for some example, I can't remember. Energy, was it? Flow is what exists before signification. Lacan asks, what does this desire mean? D&G asks, what does this desire do? When what Lacan actually says, brief but accurate, let's be fair to Lacan. For Lacan, the subject is split. This $sign through the capitalized S signified. Desire arises from lack. Lack is produced by entry into the symbolic. The signifier structures the unconscious. The real is what resists symbolization. Usance is excessive enjoyment beyond pleasure. This gives us Oedipus, castration, the name of the father, Laura's constitutive. Lacan is not stupid or naive, but D and G think he makes a fatal move. For what D and G break in Lacan. A, desire is lack, broken. Lacan, desire exists because something is missing. D and G, desire exists because production is happening. They reverse the ontology. Lacan, lack moves towards desire or is desire, an arrow pointing towards desire. D and G, desire, false lack, produced socially. Flow is positive, not compensatory. B, the primacy of the signifier. Lacan, the unconscious is structured like a language. D and G, the unconscious is structured like a factory, a workshop, a power station. Flows are material, not symbolic. Words come after flows. C, Oedipus as universal organizer. Lacan, Oedipus structures subjectivity. The family triangle mediates desire. D and G, Oedipus is a police operation. It privatizes desire. It shrinks social flows into mummy, daddy, me. Flows want to go everywhere. History, politics, machines, capital, art. Oedipus says, no, your desire is about your parents. D, ouisiance as transgressive excess. Wrong. Lacan, ouisiance is dangerous. It threatens the symbolic order. It must be limited. D and G, ouisiance is just intensity of flow. No transcendent law is needed. Limits are imminent, not prohibitive. Prohibitive. This is where the celibate machine comes in. Enjoyment without reproduction, intensity without law. Flow versus the Lacanian real. This is subtle and important. Lacan's real, unsymbolizable, traumatic, impossible, appears as rupture. D&G's flow, productive, continuous, machinic, imminent. So where Lacan sees a whole in being, D&G see a field of production. They don't deny rupture, they deny the rupture. That rupture is foundational. Why they don't just reject Lacan, they steal from him. They keep the split subject but make it residual. The critique of ego psychology, the rejection of natural harmony. What they break is law as origin, lack as motor, signifier as master. 7, flow plus cut replaces signifier plus lack. This is the core swap. Lacan, lack, D&G, production, signifier, machine, law, immanence, subject, residue, meaning, function, desire wants, desire does. 8, why this matters for your reading. You already intuit this when you think the virtual precedes the actual. Potential is real. Creativity is imminent. Flow equals the virtual in motion. Desiring machines equals actualization that cut it. The subject is just what says, so that's what it was. If you want next, we can map flow onto capitalism, decoded flows, connect flow to art and music, especially PJ Harvey, or show exactly how 1,000 Plateaus abandons psychoanalysis entirely. You're reading at this at the right speed. Thank you. What's that mean? The subject is just what says, so that's what it was. I'm just going to ask. I don't get it. As a conclusion, I don't get this bit. Get this bit. This is the last bit. The last bit. And I'll just try to not read the whole lot. Good. Good. This line should feel unsatisfying at first. It sounds throwaway, almost silly, but it's doing very heavy work in Anti-Oedipus. Let's strip it right down and rebuild without metaphor, without mysticism, and without psychoanalytic jargon. First, what they are denying. So that's what it was. They're denying this, that the subject is the origin of desire. The author of desire, the one who has desire, the interpreter who gives desire its meaning. So the subject is not I desired this, therefore I did it. That model is exactly what Lacan still keeps, even with the split subject. What actually happens before the subject appears? Before the subject, there is the flow of affects, sensations, drives, sounds, images, bodily intensities, connection being made and broken, excitement, anxiety, pleasure, disgust, attraction, repulsion. Crucially, none of this requires a subject. They think very concretely. Music hits your body, your breathing changes, your skin prickles, you lean forward or pull back. Time feels different. At this point, there is no I doing anything. The subject appears afterward. Only after the process stabilizes does something like a subject show up, not as a cause, but as a commentary effect. The subject says, that was excitement. So that was desire. So that was anger. So that was what the song did to me. So this is what they mean by so that's what it was. It's retrospective. Okay. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay. On we continue with Anti-Oedipus. Sorry about that little digression. I hope it helps you. It helped me. You probably already knew anyway, because they're all experts in everything. Michelle Caruges has identified a certain number of fantastic machines, celibate machines, that he has discovered in works of literature. The examples he points to are of many very different sorts, and at first glance do not seem to belong to a single category. Marcel Duchamp's painting, La Marie Mise à nous pas celebateris meme. The bride stripped bare by her bachelors, even. I might see if I can find that. Over in the Google space. Paste and search. Okay. Which one's the best one to represent? This one looks good. Tate. Okay. You want to see that? I'll get the visit situation. Can I share a different window? Blip, 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 blip. Do I have to stop and reshare? Hello. Fancy meeting you. There we go. Okay, I'll just write a bit about it now. Marcel Duchamp's painting, The Bride Stripped Bare by Her Bachelors, even. The machine in Kafka's In the Penal Colony. Raymond Roussel's machines, those of Jerry's Super Male, certain of Edgar Allan Poe's machines, Villiers, Eve Future, The Future Eve, etc. 17. Michelle Carouge's Les Machines Célibataires, 1954. Okay, so we'll go back. Now I'll stop that share again and I'll just share again. We're up to here. The characteristics that allow us to classify all of them in this one category, though their importance varies according to the example considered, are as follows. The celibate machine, first of all, reveals the existence of a much older paranoiac machine with its tortures, its dark shadows, its ancient law. The celibate machine itself is not a paranoiac machine, however. Everything about it is different. Its cogs, its sliding carriage, its shears, needles, magnets, rays. Even when it tortures or kills, it manifests something new and different, a solar force. In the second place, this transfiguration cannot be explained by the miraculating powers the machine possesses due to the inscription hidden inside it, though it in fact contains within itself the most impressive sort of inscriptions, confer the recording supplied by Edison for the future Eve. A genuine consumption is achieved by the new machine, a pleasure that can rightly be called autoerotic, or rather automatic, the nuptial celebration of a new alliance, a new birth, a radiant ecstasy, as though the eroticism of the machine liberated other unlimited forces. The subject and ousiance. The question becomes, what does the celibate machine produce? What is produced by means of it? The answer would seem to be intensive quantities. Just take that for prosperity. Intensive quantities. There is a schizophrenic experience of intensive quantities in their pure state to a point that is almost unbearable, a celibate misery and glory experienced to the fullest, like a cry suspended between life and death, an intense feeling of transition, states of pure naked intensity, stripped of all shape and form. These are often described as hallucinations and delirium, but the basic phenomenon of hallucination, I see, I hear, and the basic phenomenon of delirium, J think, presupposes an I feel at an even deeper level, which gives hallucinations their object and thought delirium its content. And I feel that I am becoming a woman, that I am becoming a god, and so on, which is neither delirious nor hallucinatory, but will project the hallucination or internalize the delirium. Delirium and hallucination are secondary in relation to the really primary emotion, which in the beginning only experiences intensities, becomings, transitions. W.R. Bion is the first to have stressed this importance of the I feel, but he places it in the realm of fantasy and makes it an effective parallel of the I think. See Elements of Psychoanalysis, 1963. Have I got any water? No. Oh. Where do these pure intensities come from? They come from the two preceding forces, repulsion and attraction, and from the opposition of those two forces, these two forces. It must not be thought that the intensities themselves are in opposition to one another, arriving at a state of balance around a neutral state. On the contrary, they are all positive in relationship to the zero intensity that designates the full body without organs. I think it's called the full body. And they undergo relative rises or falls depending on the complex relationship between them and the variations in the relative strength of attraction and repulsion as determining factors. In a word, the opposition of the forces of attraction and repulsion produces an open series of intensive elements, all of them positive, that are never an expression of the final equilibrium of a system, but consist rather of an unlimited number of stationary, metastable states through which a subject passes, like an identity for a moment. The Kantian theory, according to which intensive quantities fill up to varying degrees matter that has no empty spaces, is profoundly schizoid. Further, if we are to believe Judge Schreber's doctrine, attraction and repulsion produce intense nervous states that fill up the body without organs to varying degrees, states through which Schreber, the subject, passes, becoming a woman and many other things as well, following an endless circle of eternal return. The breasts on the judge's naked torso are neither delirious nor hallucinatory phenomena. They designate, first of all, a band of intensity, a zone of intensity on his body without organs. The body without organs is an egg. It is crisscrossed with axes and thresholds, with latitudes and longitudes and geodesic lines, traversed by gradients. Okay, geodesic, is that a word? Yeah, adjective, relating to or denoting the shortest possible line between 2 points on a sphere or other curved surface of a dome or other structure constructed from struts which follow geodesic lines and typically form an open framework of triangles and polygons, another term for geodetic. A geodesic line or structure. Early 19th century from geodesy plus ic. Geodesy. Geodesy, branch of mathematics dealing with the shape and area of the earth or large portions of it. Geodesist, noun. From the late 16th century, from modern Latin. Geodacia, from Greek. Geodacia, from G, earth, plus day and divide. Okay, the body without organs is an egg. It is crisscrossed with axes and thresholds, with latitudes and longitudes and geodesic lines, traversed by gradients, marking the transition and the becomings, the destination of the subject developing along these particular vectors. Don't like your, that's why we can read each other's palms. Nothing here is representative. Rather, it is all life and lived experience. The actual lived emotions of having breasts does not resemble breasts. It does not represent them. any more than a predestined zone in the egg resembles the organ that it is going to be stimulated to produce within itself. Nothing but bands of intensity, potentials, thresholds, and gradients. A harrowing, emotionally overwhelming experience which brings the schizo as close as possible to matter, to a burning, living center of matter. Quote, this emotion, situated outside of the particular point where the mind is searching for it, one's entire soul flows into this emotion that makes the mind aware of the terribly disturbing sound of matter and passes through its white-hot flame. 18. Antonin Artard, Les Peces Neufs in Ovaries completes. Doesn't have a year. How is it possible that the schizo was conceived of as the autistic rag separated from the real and cut off from life that he is so often thought to be? Worse still, how can psychiatric practice have made him this sort of rag? How can it have reduced him to this state of a body without organs that has become a dead thing? This schizo who sought to remain at that unbearable point where the mind touches matter and lives its every intensity, consumes it. Where the mind touches matter and lives as its every intensity, consumes its every intensity. And shouldn't this question immediately compel us to raise another one, which at first glance seems quite different? How does psychoanalysis go about reducing a person who this time is not a schizophrenic but a neurotic to a pitiful creature who eternally consumes daddy and mummy and nothing else whatsoever? How could the conjunctive synthesis of "so that's what it was" and "so it's me" have been reduced to the endless, dreary discovery of Oedipus? So it's my father, my mother. We cannot answer these two questions at this point. We merely see how very little the consumption of pure intensities has to do with family figures and how very different the connective tissue of the "so-it's" is from the Oedipal tissue. How can we sum up this entire vital progression? Let us trace it along a first path, the shortest route. The points of disjunction on the body without organs form circles that converge on the desiring machines. Then the subject produced as a residuum alongside the machine as an appendix. Coming today, we get post today, do we? Or as a spare part adjacent to the machine. I'll start that again. I got interrupted by a text message flying at me. I'll just have a look at that text message just momentarily. Won't be too much longer. Oh, it didn't give me a time, but that's okay. It's leaving it in the same lives. No idea what it is. Probably seeds. I don't know what seeds because I haven't ordered any, but you know, just that happened a while ago. How can we sum up this entire vital progression? Let us trace it along a first path, the shortest route. The points of disjunction on the body without organs form circles that converge on the desiring machines. Then the subject produced as a residuum alongside the machine as an appendix or as some spare part adjacent to the machine passes through all the degrees of the circle and passes from one circle to another. This is on the physician. How can we sum up this vital progression? The point of disjunction on the body without organs forms circles that converge on the desiring machines. Then the subject produced as a residuum alongside the machine as an appendix or as a spare part adjacent to the machine. The subject passes through all the degrees of the circle and passes from one circle to another to become organised instead of without organs. This subject itself is not at the centre, which is occupied by the machine, but on the periphery with no fixed identity, forever decentered, defined by the states through which it passes. Thus, the circles traced by Beckett's unnameable, a succession of irregular loops, now sharp and short, as in the waltz, now of a parabolic sweep. 19, Samuel Beckett, the unnameable. In 3 novels by Samuel Beckett, the unnameable was translated from the French by the author. Thus, the circle is traced by Beckett's unnameable, a succession of irregular loops, now sharp and short, as in a waltz, now of a parabolic sweep. All right, I don't know that word. Of or like a parabola, or part of one, of or expressed in parables. Okay. Late Middle English from late Latin, from Greek parabolikos, from parabole, application. See parabola. Okay. Hello. Parabola. A symmetrical open plane curve formed by the intersection of a cone with a plane parallel to its side. A symmetrical open plane curve formed by the intersection of a cone with a plane parallel to its side. The path of a projectile under the influence of gravity follows a curve of this shape. Late 16th century, modern Latin from Greek, parabole, placing side by side, application from para, beside, plus bowl, a throw, from the verb ballion, parabolic sweep. This circle traced by Beckett, Beckett's unnameable, a succession of irregular loops, now sharp and short, as in a waltz, now a parabolic sweep, with Murphy, Watt, Merrier, etc., as states, without the family having anything whatsoever to do with all of this, or to follow a path that is more complex but leads in the end to the same thing by means of the paranoiac machine and the miraculating machine, the proportions of attraction and repulsion on the body without organs produce, starting from 0, a series of states in the celibate machine, and the subject is born of each state in the series, or continually reborn of the following state that determines him at a given moment, consummating all these states that cause him to be born and reborn, the lived state coming first in relation to the subject that lives it. This is what Klauszowski has admirably demonstrated in his commentary on Nietzsche, the presence of the Stimmung as a material emotion constitutive of the most lofty thought and the most acute perception. The centrifugal forces do not flee the centre forever, but approach it once again, only to retreat from it again. Such is the nature of the violent oscillations that overwhelm an individual so long as he seeks only his own centre and is incapable of seeing the circle of which he himself is a part. For if these oscillations overwhelm him, it is because each one of them, corresponds to an individual other than the one he believes himself to be, from the point of view of the unlocatable centre. As a result, an identity is essentially fortuitous, and as a series of, I've got to look it up, happening by chance rather than intention. As a result, an identity is essentially contingent. A chance happens by chance, and a series of individualities must be undergone by each of these oscillations, so that, as a consequence, the fortuitousness of this or that particular individuality will render all of them necessary. 20. Perry Klauszowski, Nietzsche, and the vicious circle. The forces of attraction and repulsion, of soaring ascents and plunging falls, produce a series of intensive states based on the intensity equals 0 that designates the body without organs. But what is most unusual is that here again a flux is necessary merely to signify this absence. 21, Ibid. A flux. A new afflux, a flow of something, especially water or air. Okay. Well, I didn't know. It might have been applying flux to a soldering and making sure it flows. In the early 17th century, from medieval Latin, affluxus, from affluere, flow freely, see affluent, flux, French, affluence, electronics, flow. There we go. New word. We'll just go back to the start of that sentence. The forces of attraction and repulsion, of soaring ascents and plunging falls, produce a series of intensive states based on the intensity equals 0 that designates the body without organs. But what is most unusual is that here again a new flux is necessary. A new flow is necessary merely to signify this absence. 21. Ibid. There is no Nietzsche the self, professor of philology, who suddenly loses his mind and supposedly identifies with all sorts of strange people. Rather, there is the Nietzschean subject who passes through a series of states and who identifies these states with the names of history. Every name in history is I. 22. Friedrich Nietzsche, letter to Jacob Burckhardt, January 5th, 1889, in Selected Letters of Friedrich Nietzsche, translated by Christopher Middleton, Chicago University Press, 1969, page 347, translator's note. No, it's down here. The subject spreads itself out along the entire circumference of the circle, the centre of which has been abandoned by the ego. At the center is the desiring machine, the celibate machine of the eternal return. Is that because it's liking, it's affirmation, it's an affirmation, it's an affirming, it affirms happiness or excessive joy, and you got to do that to the eternal return, for the eternal return. Let me ask the bot. Okay. Why is the celibate machine of the eternal return? I'll just get that sentence. Ask the bot. Why is the celibate, I don't know how to spell it. Bloody hell. Celibate. Silly word. Celibate. You bite. Why is the celibate machine of the eternal return? Of the eternal return. Is that capitalized as well? This is an excellent question because here Deleuze and Guattari quietly splice Nietzsche into the machinery. I need to move it. Of Anti-Oedipus, and they do it without stopping to explain it. If you don't already have Deleuze's reading of Eternal Return, I have it a little bit. The sentence looks mystical and arbitrary. It isn't. Let's go carefully and separate four things. One, what the eternal return means for Deleuze, not the pop version. Two, why the ego is expelled from the centre. Three, why the celibate machine sits at the centre, or why that machine equals eternal return. Deleuze. One, Deleuze's eternal return. Crucial correction. Nietzsche's eternal return is not time looping, events repeating identically. It's two parts, isn't it? The same life over and over. For Deleuze, eternal return means only what differs returns, and only what's willed to return, or more precisely, only what can affirm itself returns. What does not return? Identities, egos, reactive forces, representations, negations, transcendence. Eternal return is a selective principle, not a cosmology. It selects intensities, differences, becomings, productive forces. Why the ego is expelled from the centre. In classical models, ego equals centre, experience radiates outwards, the world is for me. Deleuze and Guattari reverse this. They say production is central, ego is secondary, the subject is spread out, decentered. So the subject spreads itself out along the entire circumference of the circle. Why is it a circle? Meaning the subject is not a point. It's an effect across a field, a circular field. It's distributed across experiences, affects, and practices. The ego cannot be at the centre because it does not produce, it only records and narrates. Why the celibate machine is at the centre? Recall what the celibate machine does. It produces enjoyment without reproduction. It does not aim at an object. It does not form an organism. It intensifies without closure. That makes it pure affirmation. No goal, no lack, no outside justification. This is exactly what Deleuze takes Nietzsche to be saying. Why the celibate machine is eternal return. Now the key connection, the celibate machine connects desire to itself, feeds production back into production, consumes without final product, affirms intensity for its own sake. This means it does not create something that could be represented or possessed. It creates more capacity to produce. This is eternal return, not this happens again, but this way of producing is affirmed again. What returns is the mode of production, the intensity, the difference, not the subject, not the ego, not the identity. Why celibate? Because reproduction equals identity. Reproduction copies a form, preserves an organism, stabilizes identity. Celibacy here means no reproduction of the same, no lineage, no filiation, no Oedipal inheritance, only difference returns. The circle imagined, decoded. The circle image decoded. Let's translate the sentence piece by piece. The subject spreads itself out along the entire circumference of the circle. The subject is distributed, not centered. The center of which has been abandoned by the ego. The ego is no longer the source. At the center is a desiring machine, equals production, not identity, is primary. The celibate machine of the eternal return equals a machine that affirms production without reproducing identity. One sentence translation. Here is the sentence rewritten in plain language. The self is no longer the source of experience. Production is. What keeps happening again is not the self, but the capacity to produce and enjoy intensities without needing a fixed identity. Why this matters for the whole book? This is the deepest claim of Anti-Oedipus. Desire does not want objects. Desire does not want meaning. Desire does not want identity. Desire wants to continue producing. The eternal return is the name for that affirmation. Why this fits your reading trajectory. You're already moving from Anti-Oedipus, thousand plateaus, virtual, actual, immanence, creation. This sentence is the bridge. If you want, next we can tie this directly to difference and repetition, show how this becoming imperceptible, or map it onto art as non-reproductive production. But if this finally lands, say where, and tell me how deep to go next. No, none of it. Okay, a residual subject. I'll read that highlighted one again. The subject spreads itself out along the entire circumference of the circle, the center of which has been abandoned by the ego. At the center is the desiring machine, the celibate machine of the eternal return. A residual subject of the machine, Nietzsche as subject, garners a euphoric reward, voluptas, from everything that this machine turns out, a product that the reader had thought to be no more than the fragmented ova by Nietzsche. Nietzsche believes that he is now pursuing not the realization of a system, but the application of a program in the form of residues of the Nietzschean discourse, which have now become the repertory, so to speak, of his histrionicism, repertory, performance of various plays, repertoire, okay. Repertory, another term for repertoire, repertory, okay. Okay, that'll do. Histrionicism 23, Klazowski opposite. I'll just have a look at that. Histrionic. Of his histrionicism. Which would Google. Histrionicism refers to excessive dramatic behavior, emotionality, and intense attention seeking, stemming from the word for actors, histriones, and often linked to histrionic personality disorder, a mental health condition marked by a pervasive pattern of theatricality, seductive behavior, shallow but rapidly shifting emotions, and a strong need for approval emerging in early adulthood. It can also just describe highly theatrical acting or speech, not necessarily a disorder. It is not a matter of identifying with various historical personages, but rather identifying the names of history with zones of intensity on the body without organs. And each time nature as subject exclaims, "They're me, so it's me," no one has ever been as deeply involved in history as the schizo or dealt with it in this way. He consumes all of universal history in one fell swoop. We began by defining him as Homo natura, and lo and behold, he has turned out to be Homo historia. This long road that leads from one to the other stretches from Hölderlin to Nietzsche, and the pace becomes faster and faster. The euphoria could not be prolonged in Nietzsche for as long a time as the contemplative alienation of Hölderlin. The vision of the world granted to Nietzsche does not inaugurate a more or less regular succession of landscapes or still lifes extending over a period of 40 years or so. It is rather a parody of the process of reconciliation of an event. A single actor will play the whole of it in pantomime in the course of a single solemn day, because the whole of it reaches expression and then disappears once again in the space of just one day, even though it may appear to have taken place between December 31 and January 6 in a realm above and beyond the usual rational calendar. 24, Klazowski. Well, I'm going to finish there for the moment because I need to get water. And I don't want to leave you here alone because I don't know who you are. Stop recording.